Dallas Mavericks were in the Western Conference Finals, but they lost in 5 to the eventual champion Warriors, who beat the Celtics, who in turn beat them 2 years later in 5 in the NBA Finals. That's 2 pretty successful seasons. But what followed was not successful, because the next season they would lose in the play-in. So where did it all go wrong for the Mavs? Well, the 2022 Mavs had a new head coach, going from Rick Carlisle to a player champion with the Mavs in Jason Kidd, who was on the 2011 team. Some of the key players include Luka, Brunson, Kristaps Porzingis, who was traded midseason, Dorian Finney-Smith, shout out current Laker, and Dwight Powell, the only remaining Mav as of right now. They finished 52-30, which was good for 4th in the West, but they would be missing Luka Doncic. So to start the playoffs, the Jazz would beat them in the first game of round 1, but Jalen Brunson powered them to a 2-1 series lead before the Jazz tied it back up at 2, but that was their final stand as Doncic came back and won the next 2 games for the Mavs. So round 2, their next opponent, the 1-seeded, reigning West champion, 64-18 Phoenix Suns. In Game 1 and Game 2, in Phoenix, both Suns wins. And CP3 and Book got a little too arrogant, as they made the mistake of looking at each other and smiling when asked about targeting Luka in the pick and roll. Big mistake. Dallas won the next 2 games at home, and in Game 5 in Phoenix, Booker got fouled and rolled on the floor and said, "The Luka special." Phoenix won 110-80, and this utterance would be an even bigger mistake because Luka Doncic would say the famous line, "Everybody acting tough when they up." And that line is my only hope right now, as the Lakers are down 2-1 to the Timberwolves.
And they lost. That line wasn't much hope after all.
The day I'm recording this. And that led to a blowout Game 6 for the Mavs, which led to Game 7 in Phoenix, Arizona, the home team having won every game. And the Mavs actually came out smoking to start the game, especially Luka. He had 27.5, and so did the whole Suns team. In the second half, it went from ugly to hideous. Chris Paul, and this is the game where that meme originated. Chris Paul hit the huge 3 to cut the lead to 42. Just absolutely massive. Ice in his veins, Chris Paul. Huge 3. Dallas led by as many as 46 points. And the Suns, they got cooked, roasted, toasted, flambéed, boiled, grilled. There's no shortage of adjectives to describe how badly the Phoenix Suns got deep cleaned off of their own floor.
I forgot.
Anthony Edwards went on to Instagram to call this a disgrace. Keep this in the back of your head for a couple. No, actually, don't keep it in the back of your head. He's up 2-1 on my Lakers. Anyway, Dallas advances, but they lose in 5 to the Warriors. So the next season, the Mavericks started the season 31-26 and were 5 in the West. And then they traded to Kyrie Irving. You'd think that they'd be better, right? Right? No, wrong. They finished going 7-18 and opted to tank for the rest of the season at 38-44, which wasn't even good enough for the play-in. But it got them Derek Lively with pick number 11. So now we start 2023 to 2024. And before I go on with this, there's this article on ESPN about how the Mavs fell apart from within before the Luka trade. I'll link it down below, and you should go check that out. So with the addition of Lively, the Mavs were 19-14 going into 2024, the calendar year. In their first 51, they went 28-23, and then once again they traded with the Wizards. 2 years prior, they gave them Porzingis, and this year they acquired Gafford, and the Hornets traded P.J. Washington to them. With those additions, they finished 22-9, good for 50-32 in the 5 seed in the West, setting up for the third time in 4 years a first-round matchup with the LA Clippers. They lost in the bubble and then lost to them the year after. And they lost game 1 by 12 points, and watching it live, it wasn't actually that close. They were down by as many as 29 and didn't have a single lead. I mean, it actually did start close. It started 0-0. But game 2 also started 0-0, and it would be a win for them. And back in game 3, in Dallas, it was pretty much Lob City Mavericks. Game 4, 2 days later, the Clippers were just blowing them out. They led by 35 points, but then Kyrie catalyzed the comeback, finishing with 40, but Harden and George closed the game in the clutch, tying the series at 2 apiece. And oh no, in LA there was a billboard saying Dallas to Cancun. And making that billboard was it wasn't a good idea. That billboard was not a great idea to make because not only did the Mavs blow them out in Game 5, Kyrie closed them in Game 6, highlighted by his crossing up P.J. Tucker, crossing him up again in the corner, and hitting an and-one three to push the lead to 24. So once again, they would have a second-round matchup against the 1 seed. This time, it was a ferocious young Oklahoma City team. Game 1 was a blowout loss for them, which was kind of expected, to be honest. But Game 2, the Mavs were able to win that game, and after an Irving dagger floater to beat the shot clock, they took Game 3. Game 4 would go to Oklahoma City by 4 points, and Game 5 in OKC, the Mavs won it by 12. Alright, so Game 6 in Dallas. This game was actually a movie. Mavs lead 3-2, Thunder up by as many as 17, but down the stretch, that's when it became a movie. P.J. Washington hit a 3 to make it 113-110. DJ hits a fall-away shot and is immediately helped up by Coach Kidd and yelled at to get back on defense. SGA steps back and hits a 3. Dallas is called for an away-from-the-play foul on the inbounds when OKC gets the ball back, meaning OKC gets and makes a free throw and the ball. Shea would throw a lob to Chet, but then committed a costly foul on P.J. Washington in the corner, and it was a three-pointer too, so he made the first 2, but OKC had no timeouts, so he intentionally missed the second with 3 seconds, and then J-Dub missed from half court. The very next day, Minnesota came back down from 20 in Game 7, and Anthony Edwards entertained the idea of guarding Kyrie. Oh no. So Game 1 of the West Finals, Minnesota... In Minnesota, they were managed to take the game, actually. And in Game 2, Luka would hit a game-winning 3 over Gobert and then verbally assault him. And then Game 3 back in Dallas, Minnesota actually hang in there for a while, but multiple late baskets, including a fall-away Kyrie jumper over Cat and a Luka lob to Gafford were daggers. Dallas would lose Game 4, but the record of teams going down 3-0, 0-57. And I'm recording this at 1:51 on April 26th. So we're a good 99 minutes away from the Memphis Grizzlies making it 0-158.
And the Heat made it 0-159.
Dallas blew out Minnesota in Game 5, and it was, as Ant-Man said 2 years ago, a disgrace, but at least Phoenix lost in 7. Luka came out and dropped 20 first quarter and finished with 36, 10, and 5. Dallas led by as many as 36. Final score 124-103, and Dallas was headed to the finals, but they lost in 5. I don't really feel like going over it. So in the offseason, the Mavs would pick up Klay Thompson, the longtime Splash brother, and lost Derrick Jones Jr. to the Clippers. So some of their main players are Luka, Kyrie, Klay, P.J. Washington, Lively, and Gafford. Great championship potential, right? Right? They opened the season beating the Spurs 120-109. About a week later, Luka Doncic had his last signature moment. Emphasis on the word moment. On the road in Minnesota, Dallas leads 114-109 with about 50 seconds and the shot clock dwindling. And then Luka drains a dagger logo shot over McDaniels. His last signature game was 45 points against Golden State. And his last full game was December 23rd in a win versus the Blazers, where he scored 27, 7, and 7. But the last time he would suit up in a Mavs uniform, 2 days later on Christmas Day. He finished with 14 points in 16 minutes after straining his calf. They were 26 and 23 heading into a game versus Cleveland, and they were also dealing with injuries not only to Doncic but to Lively and Gafford. But then, in the dead of night, they traded their 25-year-old generational talent for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a 2029 first-round pick. Everybody has a story. Every NBA fan has a story about how they found out about this trade. I'm probably going to share mine in a future video, but for now, that's not important. The reasoning for this trade: poor conditioning, injuries, and to improve their... Okay, let me put my glasses on. And to improve their 12th ranked defense. A generational talent traded to improve your 12th ranked defense. And Nico Harrison somehow failed to realize that maybe the fans wouldn't react well to trading away the face of the franchise. And I wrote that part before getting the notification that Nico didn't know how important Luka was to Dallas. Come on now, come on. And they staged a funeral outside American Airlines. Now, meanwhile, in Cleveland, they were getting absolutely dog-walked. Jared Allen, the 6'10" Cavs center, was shooting threes. That's how bad it got. But on February 8th, Davis made his debut for Dallas, a home game against Houston, and he was great. He scored 26 points, had 16 boards, and 7 assists in 31 minutes. And then he got hurt. 2 days later, Doncic would make his LA debut, only scoring 14, 5, and 5. But then the Lakers lost to Utah and at home against Charlotte with a combined 30 Doncic points. And maybe it was looking like the Mavs had actually won the trade. But then he scored 32, 10, and 7 against Denver and followed it up with 19, 15, and 12 at home against his former team. And Nico Harrison, he actually came to this game. That was honestly a mistake. Like, he traveled to LA to come to this game and had the fans chanting, "Thank you, Nico." Meanwhile, the Mavs not in a good place, ejecting fans, losing, "Fire Nico" ringing through the stadium. But then it got worse. On March 3rd versus Sacramento, Kyrie Irving, who was carrying the minute load since the trade, went down. Got up to shoot free throws, but it was a torn ACL and he was done for the year. 13 days later, Quentin Grimes, who was traded to Philadelphia, dropped 28 on them in a loss to the Sixers, which was supposed to be on ABC but got flexed out. Oh, and Grimes averaged 22, 5, and 4 for Philly. And then due to a combination of injuries, two-way players only being allowed 50 NBA games per year, and salary cap restrictions, the Mavs almost had to start forfeiting games. But on March 24th, at Brooklyn, Davis comes back in a 19-point wins, only had 12 points, but 6 rebounds, a steal, and a block, and next he played well down the stretch, winning 6 of their 9 games with Davis, including the Houston game. But we really gotta talk about one of those 3 losses, the last of the 3 losses, when justice was served. April 9th, 7:30 on ESPN. Luka served justice, and he came out shooting the ball well. After crying in the tribute video, he dropped 31 in the half, finishing with 45, 8, and 6. It was actually a close game for a little while, but LeBron James stopped to come back, close the game down the stretch, and the best part about it is that the Lakers clinched a playoff spot. But Dallas would lock in the play-in the same night due to the Phoenix Suns.
Let's just say they deserve their own video.
Yeah, I just smelled Phoenix Sun in here. In the play-in game at Sacramento, Davis would drive 27, and Klay Thompson, a year of going 0 of 10 in that same situation in that same building, scored 23. Dallas would face Memphis, and Davis scored 40 points. So they won, right? No, they lost. It wasn't close either. But neither was Game 1 of Memphis' first-round series, because they lost by, I'm smelling Memphis Grizzly, 51 points.
Actually, I spelled Miami Heat because losing by
And now the
60 is
Mavericks,
outrageous.
it's not looking good for them. They went from the Western Conference Finals to a play-in information. The guy who took them to all three of those is gone, and the other guy who helped take them to the finals tore his ACL. And the guy they traded, the generational talent, didn't get a great return for them. Only 2 players, 1 first-round pick, and that first-round pick is in 2029. 29. So the future is looking pretty bleak for the Dallas Mavericks. And that's the video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.